Okay, I'm going to talk about G.K. Chesterton's essay, The Ethics of Elfland. The Ethics of Elfland. In The Ethics of Elfland, G.K. Chesterton develops what he calls his Fairyland philosophy, which he says is entirely reasonable. And the first two principles, there's 5 principles that he develops. I'm just going to go over the first principle. And to explain the first principle of Fairyland philosophy, I must refer to Chesterton's joke about from the frog. What did the first frog say? And the answer to that is, "Lord, how you made me jump." Okay, what does that mean? Well, the Lord, how you made me jump. The frog is surprised, shocked that it can jump. It's surprised. It didn't expect it. It didn't expect that it would be able to jump. So life is it's surprising. Lord, how you made me jump, but it's a delightful surprise. Lord, how you made me jump. The frog actually enjoys jumping. From that principle, from the frog, Lord, how you made me jump, Chesterton derives 2 principles. First of all, life is surprising, or he calls it magic. Life is magic. And the second principle is that we should be grateful for being in a fairy tale. We should be grateful for the surprise. Okay? Now, I'm just going to focus on the first principle. Life is shocking. Now, to do this, I have to say something about David Hume, Hume's fork. David Hume is the greatest philosopher in the English language. And he developed what is called Hume's fork, which is basically saying that there are 2 types of statements or sentences that we can make that can be either true or false. That statements that can be true or false. So if we're in the business of coming up with things to say about the world that are true or false, Hume says that there are only 2. We only have 2 options. Either there are, on the one hand, relations of ideas, like, for example, 2 and 2 is 4, or all circles are round. Those are true by definition, right? All circles are round. I mean, to know that, you just need to know what the meaning of a circle is. If I say all squares have 4 sides, you don't have to actually look at a square and count the sides. You know that that's true simply by the meaning of the word square. On the other hand, we have what are called matters of fact. If I say, for example, that it's raining outside, I can't know that it's raining outside without looking, right? I can't know without looking. If I say the cat is on the mat, there's nothing in the meaning of the word cat that says it's on the mat. Just like if I said all circles are round, well, I don't have to look at the circles to see if it's round. Simply by knowing the meaning of the word circle, I know that all circles are round. By knowing the meaning of the word cat, I don't know that it's on the mat. So the cat is on the mat is an example of a statement which is the form of matters of fact. That's called Hume's fork. It's a double-pronged fork. And Hume says, if you go through all the books in the library, just go through all the books, and if these statements are making claims about the world, if they're making claims that are to be accepted as true or false, Hume says, if they're not matters of fact or relations ideas, throw them into the flames. Now, Hume says in Fairyland, his Fairyland philosophy, Hume says he learned everything he knows, his fundamental principles, he learned from fairy tales. And this is an example of one of the things he learned. Basically, from the fairy tales, he learned basically what Hume learned, or what Hume talks about in his books. He learned one of the principles from Fairyland was Hume's fork. Now, Chesterton doesn't refer to Hume, and I assume that he's read Hume. I don't know. If he didn't read Hume, then it's just intuitively he sees what Hume saw. So, Chesterton says, in Fairyland, so basically Chesterton says, what is a law? A law is a logical connection between two things. So, circles are round, okay? There's a logical connection between the idea of a circle and it's being round. And Chesterton says we can then therefore talk of a law in the sense of a necessary connection. Now, when you're talking about things in the world, like for example, I take a pencil, and I say, if I ask you, well, okay, when I let go of this pencil, what's going to happen? You're going to say it's going to fall. I've got two ideas: letting go of a pencil and it's falling. Hume would say there's no logical connection between the two. If I said, for example, that this is a circle, therefore it's round, you say, yeah, okay, of course. There's a necessary connection. If I say I let go of this pencil and it's going to fall, well, there's no logical connection between them. It's because now I'm dealing with matters of fact. At best, my statement that this pencil will fall is at best probably true. If I said this is a circle, therefore it's round, it's not probably true, it's necessarily true. Also, matters of fact I can only know by after looking, so they're known a posteriori. I can only know that this is going to fall by actually observing after looking, and it did fall. So it fell, okay, but I could only know that a posteriori from after actually looking. If I said this is a circle, therefore it's round, I know that a priori before looking, because I don't need to look, okay, because by definition all circles are round. Chesterton says, he found that scientific men were, the scientists, when you'd read these books of scientists, they talk about matters of fact, things in the world, as though they were logically necessary. That's strange. So the scientists, for example, would look at this pencil and they would say, "Oh, pencil's going to fall," and they would tell you why. It's going to fall because of the law of gravity. So there's some necessary connection between letting go of this pencil and it's falling, and that's the law of gravity. And Chesterton says there's no such law at all. We never observe this law. I mean, I can imagine letting go of this pencil and it just flying away or just turning into a turtle, right? So I can imagine it not falling. But when it comes to a circle is round, all circles are round, I cannot imagine a circle not being round. It's impossible. Using the test of the imagination, Chesterton says, if you can imagine something not being a certain way, then it's not there's no necessary connection. Chesterton says when he looked around at the scientists, he saw these scientists, talking about things in the world, matters of fact, as though they were laws. Chesterton says, if you're going to be honest, we should get rid of when it comes to matters of fact, about things in the real world, like apple trees bearing apples, or biting into an orange and it tastes like an orange, or letting go of a pencil and the pencil's falling, or putting your hand to a hot surface and you're feeling pain. Chesterton says if we're going to be honest, we should get rid of the word law and talk about magic. We should talk about the magic of all this stuff happening. And that's the first principle of his Fairyland philosophy. Get rid of the word law when it comes to talking about things that happen in the real world. Get rid of that word and substitute the word magic. If you don't like the word magic, then substitute the word ignorance, which means we don't know. But don't pretend that you do know a necessary connection between two things that you don't know. When it comes to circles being round, we do know the logical connection. All bachelors are unmarried. We do know the connection because by definition, we know that those statements are true. When it comes to matters of fact in the world, we do not know there is no necessary connection. And why do we believe it then? I mean, why do I believe, for example, that when I let go of this pencil, it's going to fall? Hume would say, We believe because it's of habit or custom. There's no rational reason to believe it because our reason cannot prove it at all. It makes just as much sense to say that when I let go of this pencil, to believe that it's going to turn into a turtle. There's nothing. Why should I believe that it's going to fall? Hume says the only reason I believe it's going to fall is from experience. After observing many, many times these weird repetitions, Chesterton also refers to weird repetitions, I then come to expect it to fall. And then I generate this idea that there's a necessary law, necessary connection, which Hume says there's no necessary connection whatsoever. So the first principle, and the most important single principle of Fairyland, of Chesterton's Fairyland philosophy, is that when it comes to talking about the real world, we should get rid of references to law, like, for example, the law of gravity, and we should be honest about it and talk about the magic of gravity, or just saying the riddle of gravity, which is totally reasonable, and it's exactly what David Hume himself argued in his philosophy. So the first principle of Chesterton's Fairyland philosophy, you might say, is David Hume's fork. Except he gets it more of he actually describes it in a more dramatic an imaginative way than Hume does, and he takes it in a direction that Hume wouldn't take it. Hume himself is an atheist. Chesterton is not. Chesterton believes in God. So later in the essay, Chesterton is going to argue, or at least to suggest, it's not a logical proof, it's an intuition. He says, where there's magic, there must be a magician. Magic, magician. The world is magic. Of that, Chesterton has no doubt. And Hume had no doubt either. And since it is magic, meaning we don't understand any necessary connection between things in the real world, let's just be honest and stop talking about laws, the laws of physics, the law of gravity and so on. Just be honest. Say the magic of gravity. That would be much more honest. Okay, so that's the first principle of Fairyland, of Chesterton's Fairyland philosophy. It's in his essay, The Ethics of Elfland. And if you've never read the essay, read it. It's a great essay. Of all the essays I've ever read, it's my absolute favorite. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about G.K. Chesterton today.